Hi everybody, my name is Letiredd, content creator over on Twitch, and today we are talking about Inside Star Citizen Dev Diary Gavin Rothery. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to see, but I think it is basically about one very creative human being, and so that's always interesting to see. So let's go ahead and check that out together. So let's check this out.
It's no secret that Star Citizen is an ambitious game, trying to build a first-person universe of varied experiences across multiple star systems. But at its core will always be the spaceship. And the process of making a spaceship always begins with the concept artist. And we've had no shortage of greats contribute to our legacy of vehicles. From Star Wars superstars like Ryan Church and David Hobbins, to Star Trek luminaries like Jim Martin. From the art departments of Godzilla, Matrix, Blade Runner, and Dune like Emmanuel Shui and George Hull, to the dedicated CIG legends like Paul Jones and Alberto Petronio, and a whole host of folks in between too numerous to mention, the origin of our spacecraft are as numerous as their manufacturers. But there's one person who's participated in the birth of more Star Citizen spacecraft than any other. With more than 20 vehicles to his name so far, he bridges the gaps between manufacturers and has helped to define or refine many of their styles over the years. And in this year's special Ship Showdown showcase, we brought the prolific Gavin Rothery into our office for your chance to meet the man and celebrate just a fraction of his contribution to this project. And because I just think he's neat. Let's go.
Cool. All right, so I'm very curious to see what ships this guy has created. Obviously, we all have our faves. And I have to admit, the Star Citizen ships are some of the sexiest I've ever seen in a game, at least space related. Besides the obvious things like Star Wars or Star Trek. So this should be pretty interesting. Let's see what he has to say. Who is this guy?
Toothpaste flakes. I think working as a concept artist is great. I like the way I get to spend time with my dogs. I really appreciate that. I've got my dogs around me all day. I get my spaceships, my dogs, and I get to come up to Manchester and hang out with you guys for a bit. It's awesome. You want to get it? I think it's toothpaste flakes.
Beautiful.
Oh, I'll do.
That's right.
The funny thing is that I've done that on set before. Yep, it's a thing.
I'm an artist.
So he's responsible for the raft. That's cool. So Terrapin, right?
So a concept artist is usually a human. That might change. We've seen these AIs. They're coming for us. So a concept artist is an artist who comes in at the start of a job and works to a technical brief, which is often just writing. There might be a few reference images in there occasionally. We don't really tend to work like that. We'll just get a technical brief and you've got to come there and you've just got to realise things. Usually you're working somewhat in isolation. There's base touching with like art directors and such, but like a lot of my job is me just working at home in my studio, just kind of getting on with things, having like regular touch-ins, and that sounds weird. Touching base frequently and just pushing the design forward, basically. So I'm given a brief and a deadline, and I'm expected to metamorphosize that brief into something that can fulfill that brief and look really cool on the clock.
You ought to see.
There's a few things that make a good concept artist, really. You've got to be able to get along with people and like fit into a team. That's first and foremost, because it's more remote, so it can take longer to get relationships going with people. So that stuff becomes more important.
Valkyrie.
A game project particularly, there's lots of things changing in development, so you've got to be able to approach your work with a mindset of like not being too precious about it. You can do a bunch of work on things and it can all be beautiful, And that could just completely change, and you have to do something else which is beautiful. And you've got to just be able to wake up every morning and kind of deliver that. Whenever you see a good concept artist, you'll be looking at somebody that is able to do that and figured it out in their life. So Star Citizen is a very unique beast. I've been in the games industry for a long time. I've worked in movies. I've been around the block. I've done stuff. Star Citizen is one of those projects that's got such definitively harsh metrics that you need to fit that I've never worked on another project like it. You can look at the Millennium Falcon, it looks pretty on the outside, it looks pretty on the inside. Those two things don't go together. So with Star Citizen, everything has to fit. And I remember when I first started doing some of the bigger ships, like many years ago, that was a new thing to me because other projects don't really consider that. They'll have, once you're inside a ship, you're basically inside a magic little universe, and, things can be completely different scales, and people generally don't worry about that stuff too much. With Star Citizen, it's all cohesive and it all has to fit. And so when we're designing it, we'll start with the exterior. We always do options for things. So the first...
Just want to say real quickly that I think the coolest part of the Star Citizen ships is how the exterior and the interior work together so well, and the fact that they have to take all of that into account, and it gives you some pretty cool stuff. The Hammerhead's a really great example. I mean, this thing is incredibly badass. Not my favorite ship, but when you look at the design, the detail, how the layout inside feels like the way it should with that cutout in the middle. No, it's pretty impressive.
Week of a new ship design is me doing, just blasting out options as quickly as I can. When I'm designing a ship, I work in 3D and 2D. So my actual pipeline is I do all my 3D in Maya. So I get the brief, and I go straight into 3D and just start blocking out shapes and basically sketching in 3D. I've been doing this for a long time as a concept artist, and I found that working in shapes and volume, it's just a very natural way to work. It's a sculptural medium. I always just get straight into 3D, and I don't really work from one angle to start off with. I literally work with a 3D shape and just work all around it to begin. So I work my way in from blocking 3D shapes. So this is all done in Maya. And I like to put 4 or 5 options together so that we can all have a good sit down and choose. And there'll be a range of things in there. I try and make them all quite different. Quite often you'll have a favourite, but that doesn't really matter because that might not be the way the ship ends up going. And then ultimately, whichever way it ends up going, that becomes your favourite because you work on it more and it comes to life. And then once we have that kind of feedback after the first week, we'll have more of a direction, and we might push forwards with a couple of designs and work a couple up a bit more. Then after another week or two, we'll nail it down to one and just keep pushing forwards with one direction. We work in 4 stages for the actual design and then a promo stage at the end. So we'll normally go first pass exterior, first pass interior, second pass exterior, second pass interior. And through those 2 processes, we'll establish the look of the outside, establish what the inside needs to do, make the inside fit the outside as best we can. Then we usually have to have a second pass on the outside just to change a few things because the interior has got hard limits on it. And quite often they'll be a bit sticking out, and we'll need to have a second pass over the exterior just to finish it all up and just put all the nice little polish and sort of spanky bits on there. And once that's done and we know that's not going to change, we can get in there and completely trick out the interior and finish it up. In Star Citizen, the rule of cool is a term that we use when we're putting things together, putting the art together. It's concerned with the last 20% of the design, basically. So we have so much functionality we have to put in the design, like when we're starting on a ship. We start with a brief, it's got a whole bunch of requirements a ship would need. And first and foremost, when you're working as a concept artist, you're there to do a job and you've got to fit in the project to make sure you can deliver. So I need to make sure that my concepts have got all of the things that the build team are going to need, that the players are ultimately going to want. So I've got to consider things like components, metrics, heights of handles, heights of steps, how doors work, how ramps work, angles of things. I've got to consider things like the components the ship needs, the facilities the crew need to be able to live on the ship, work on the ship. There's just all kinds of things to consider. So the rule of cool is when you've got all of that stuff done, you've got it in there, and you've got it looking cool, it fits with the brand, it looks nice. And this is where we get to use that 20% to kind of push the brand forwards, which is where the development of the ship comes from.
The eclipse is sexy. Yes.
As soon as I've got something that I want to render, I'll go into Keyshot. I'll take my main file into Keyshot. Keyshot's a product presentation 3D package specializing in beauty renders. So I can just get in there with materials. I've done this for such a long time and on so many ships now, I've got all my material libraries set for the different brands and stuff, so I can work really quickly. And I'll get some pretty renders, some nice light, and just gives a better indication of what the ship might look like further down the road. So the fifth milestone,
cool.
MS5, is promo artwork. So once we've done all the design work, and I'll have done a ton of rendering along the way to put updates on the boards, but it's all worky stuff and disposable stuff. And once we get to promo, that's when these ships get the proper setup and get the proper time and love, and then those renders from Keyshot become promo pieces, and that's all finished in Photoshop. So my favourite brand in Star Citizen is Crusader, which would make one of my favourite ships, the Ares, because it's just, I love doing that. It's got that classic black and white sci-fi look. It's the Bjork, all this full of love music video. It's that classic cool.
I like the
But
Inferno.
I'm very partial to Argo. I do like a big orange space lump. And the mole and the raft, I just think those, I got some little goosebumps talking about them, my children. I remember when Paul Jones and I were working on, when we first did the mole, we knew we'd got something really good when we finished the mole. It's like we got the artwork done at the end of the job and we were just like, that's a nice ship. Then when we got to do the raft and we got to push it forwards again, that was a real pleasure working on the raft. But I've got to say, my all-time favourite ship, I've got to say the Gladius. It's the first one I did. When I first saw the Squadron videos that came out a while back, and I got to see Mark Hamill standing in front of that Gladius and running his hand down it and being all gooey over it, I'm looking at it thinking, that's Luke Skywalker's, like, running his hands all over my ship. Like, good job.
That's cool.
Life as a concept artist, it can be a little bit on the fringes sometimes, and you can feel like you're a little bit out there. But one of the things that I really love about it the most is being able to kind of run my own time. And there is an element of 9 to 5 to it. I don't have to be at a desk at 9 o'clock every morning. I don't have to commute. I get to spend all day with my dogs. I've got 2 little Westie friends, and you know, getting my girls curled up under my desk, and just blasting some music. And, you know, rolling in at like 9:45 with a coffee and just getting going. You know, it's just nice. It's just got that little bit more chill than you kind of commute to the office and 9 o'clock, sit down, here we go. I mean, that can translate to like late nights sometimes. You know, there's a lot of grind and crunch. But when you're doing, designing spaceships for Star Citizen, it's awesome. It's an awesome job and I love it. And it really isn't a chore. You know, you get your late nights at work, you put your music on, you put the kettle on, and you just get on with it. It's awesome. Time flies.
So what did we learn this week? Well, no doubt that many of your all-time favorite spacecraft sprang forth from the efforts of Gavin Rothery. That from the Aegis Gladius to the upcoming RSI Zeus, there's no doubt that he can make a beautiful spaceship. And that with his ability to span the styles of every single manufacturer in Star Citizen, we're always excited to see what he's going to do next.
Bullshit. No. That was not funny. We want to know what he's working on next. You just showed us all this cool shit this guy's doing. You could have at least teased a ship for us right here and then, instead of whatever that was. Somebody vomiting over his voice. What was that?
If that didn't get through, know that I tried. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week. It's time to get our factional fight back on in Pyro.
All right. Okay, so that was a cool episode in terms of like I think it was really interesting to see what a concept artist does. I thought it was absolutely fantastic to put a face behind the conceptualization uh, of some of the ships that I love in the verse. I absolutely love the Inferno. I absolutely love the Sabers. You know, I love a lot of the ships that this guy has touched, and a lot of them look fantastic and great. So no, it was cool to meet this human being who clearly is a seems to be a very cool person, very creative, and um, I admire people like that who are able to pump out so much and still stay so driven and you know take pleasure in the work they do. It's refreshing to see, and it's encouraging to try and you know find that for myself. Anyways, thank you everybody for checking that out. If you watched this long, consider leaving a like and subscribe. If you didn't, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. We'll be back next week with another ISC react.